Good Tuesday evening, and thank you so much for joining us tonight on UpNorthLive Unscripted at 6:30. Well, today we got a bit of a break in the crazy weather. It was pretty quiet, a little chilly, but really nothing too hectic. However, we do know that we have the potential for more severe weather for our Wednesday. So for more on that, let's turn things over to Chief Meteorologist Joe Charlevoix. Joe, what can we expect tomorrow?
Well, a combination of a bunch of things tomorrow. It's kind of a complex system. We're looking at maybe some, well, not maybe, we'll see some snow and freezing rain, Maya, but also later in the day, the chance at least maybe for a couple severe thunderstorms too. So we have that all kind of wrapped up in the forecast for tomorrow. But coming up in mean weather, we'll look at when this starts, how much snow we expect and where, and that risk for severe weather, as we mentioned, and then beyond into early next week. All that a little later.
All right, thank you so much, Joe. We are continuing our storm coverage tonight after the weekend's significant ice storms across northern Michigan, as the Mackinac Bridge once again closed for all traffic due to falling ice. Take a look at this video. The Mackinac Bridge Authority sent us this video. You can see ice, we'll show it again one more time, narrowly missing cars that were crossing the bridge just before the closure. Now, no one was hurt, and the bridge did close down at 8 o'clock this morning, but officials say that this video is a perfect example of the dangers of falling ice. So as of right now, once again, the Mackinac Bridge still closed to traffic after this incident. There's no expected schedule for reopening, but the Bridge Authority does say that when conditions improve, the bridge will reopen to traffic. And after, again, those storms this weekend, we know thousands of people across northern Michigan are still without power, a lot of trees down and wires down. So between trying to restore power and trying to clean up, there is another issue happening across northern Michigan. Flooding is starting to become a concern for some communities. And Sumner Moore spoke with a restoration expert and shows us what people are dealing with in Alpena 4 days after the storm.
You want to make sure that the power is off before you go down into that basement. You do not want to step on in. That is key, is not to hurt yourself in a situation like this.
As thousands of people remain without power across Northeast Michigan, many are also dealing with flooded basements. I spoke with water damage experts to see what you should do if your basement is flooded both with or without power.
Have gas for generators. Make sure and keep a close eye on where your water's coming on in. If you do get the water down, contact the plumber. If your power's turned back on, definitely make sure that your sump pumps are running. Make sure they're in good working condition, because that'll be the key to getting your water on out. Then what you'd want to do is contact your insurance company, remove all items that you want to try and prevent from being damaged. There are a lot of good restoration companies out in Northeast Michigan. And, if you are in any doubt of all, contact somebody. And there's a lot of people willing to help in the situation right now.
Reporting in Alpena, I'm Sumner Moore.
And when a natural disaster does hit like those ice storms, it usually means a lot of cleanup and repair work for residents between downed trees and power lines and any damage to homes. And there are a lot of well-intended businesses who are stepping up to help. But unfortunately, when storms arrive in town, often shady folks tend to follow. So tonight, Mark Gillette is sharing some tips from the Better Business Bureau to help storm victims avoid becoming scam victims.
This is unfortunately also a really opportune time for bad businesses and scammers to jump in on the action.
Talk about getting kicked while you're down. The storms roll in, and then, according to the Better Business Bureau, far too often the shady businesses and folks looking to rip you off follow.
So you're flustered, you're stressed out, and so these bad businesses are trying to capitalize on that.
It's happened in places like Gaylord before. A few years ago, when the tornado hit, tree removal services ripping off customers just wanting to get things cleaned up.
You have damage to your home or your property. You want to get back to normal life, and you want it to happen as quickly as possible.
So on top of everything else homeowners are dealing with, the ice, the power outages, the damage, add the need to keep their rip-off radar on.
Contact your insurance company first and see what they cover. Yeah, it may be inconvenient for a while, but down the road, it's going to be a lot more inconvenient if you have to have the work done twice because you didn't relax, take that moment, and make good conscious decisions in the beginning.
Their advice: do your research with anyone who offers or that you might hire to help you clear trees and repair damage.
The Better Business Bureau is a first stop when it comes to finding that trustworthy business that's going to help you get the job done.
Check out the BBB's website, read verified reviews, check on complaints, let them do the heavy lifting.
We are that resource that you should use when you're looking for those businesses to help you avoid the bad ones and the scammers and weed through all of those options.
Talk price before the work starts, but don't pay all of it before it does.
Ask up front, what is the cost? What's that down payment? You should never be paying in full up front. That's a huge red flag. Down payments, of course. Companies need money to buy the supplies or maybe pay the guys in advance to come out and do the work.
And if you move forward with the business, get it all in writing.
You can say whatever you want in person, but it has to be in writing. That's going to help you as the consumer make sure you're actually getting what you're expecting, but also so that those companies can keep track of what they're supposed to be doing at your house and what you expect as well, so that there is no confusion.
Mark Gillette reporting, and the Better Business Bureau tells us that tree companies don't have to be licensed, but you should ask about their insurance. Builders and repair work around your home should have both. Now, for more information about tips from the Better Business Bureau when it comes to these sort of scams, head to our website, UpNorthLive.com. And in the wake of those significant ice storms over the weekend, we told you yesterday that Governor Gretchen Whitmer declared a state of emergency for 10 different counties across northern Michigan. And today I talked with Lieutenant Governor Garland Gilchrist about the importance of this declaration and also if he has plans to come up to northern Michigan to see the damage for himself. So here is my entire conversation with the Lieutenant Governor. Lieutenant Governor Gilchrist, after the weekend significant ice storms, Governor Whitmer declared a state of emergency. What exactly does that mean and why is it important?
What a state of emergency means at the state level for these particular 12 counties is that we are releasing every resource that is necessary to make sure that the local officials have what they need to keep people safe, to get power restored, to clear off debris, to make sure we have the resources to open shelters and get people the needed things they need, food, oxygen has been at a shortage. And so the state of emergency declaration is just the state of Michigan saying whatever you need, we will deliver.
So this is just help from the state. It really isn't anything related to federal funding or federal assistance.
No, that's a different process, and we certainly are monitoring. And once we have a better sort of total sense of what the damage has been and the economic impact, then we can join together to consider applying for federal emergency assistance.
So that is a possibility, but at this point, we're hoping that assistance from the state will be enough.
That's our hope, yes.
And do you or Governor Whitmer plan on coming up to northern Michigan to see the damage firsthand?
Yes, I will be in northern Michigan this week in order to not only see the damage, but frankly, to thank the first responders who've stepped up. These are the people who, again, run toward the ice, run toward the fire to make sure that we're all okay. And the people who are staffing the shelters, we have 20 shelters stood up. And then we just sent, there's oxygen tanks that have been sent to Montmorency County that are going to be distributed, as well as 2 refill stations. So I want to thank the people who are helping people in this moment, as well as understanding the damage and what needs to happen so that people can get back on their feet.
And we know progress is being made when it comes to recovery efforts, but there are still thousands of northern Michiganders without power right now. Have you talked to any power providers? Do you have any idea of when these people could see power come back?
I have, and I know so according to Consumers Energy, as of like 8 o'clock this morning, there were still more than 90,000 people who still needed their power to be restored. I know they're working really hard on it. There were sort of pre-positioned crews ahead of the storm to try to get things on as quickly as possible. So they're working really hard. But I know there are people who haven't had power since this weekend, and it's cold. And there's a lot of problems come with that. So they're working really hard, and we're making sure they have the resources they need to get that power turned back on.
And this has been a very significant ice storm here in northern Michigan. In your time in Michigan, have you seen a storm similar to this before?
I mean, this is extraordinary scale. And so I haven't seen the ice storm quite like this one. I mean, every storm is a little different, but we have seen severe weather impact northern Michigan before. I'm only thinking back to a few years ago when the tornadoes went through Gaylord, for example. And I was on the ground there to help that response, and the local officials did a fantastic job. And I know it's what's going to happen here across northern Michigan.
Is there anything else that you want people here in northern Michigan to know about the efforts from the state to get power back on and to get roads cleaned up and just get people back on their feet?
The Michigan Department of Transportation is working with our, local county road commissions to clear roads. The Michigan National Guard has been deployed with construction equipment, helping the Department of Natural Resources clear debris and make sure, again, roads can be passable so resources can get through, so emergency vehicles can get through. If people need help and resources, they should contact 211. 211 is working in partnership with United Way and the Salvation Army to direct people to food resources, to shelters, to clothing, to oxygen, to whatever people need. So please use that resource if you need something. Don't hesitate. There are people online there ready to help.
All right, Lieutenant Governor, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And as you heard in our conversation, there are still tens of thousands of people in northern Michigan without power. For some people, they haven't had power since Saturday night. So let's turn things over to our question of the day. We were curious what the longest period that you have been without power. So scan the QR code on your screen right now to take you to our website. It looks like as of right now, 57% of voters say they haven't, at one point, it was 1 to 5 days where they did not have power. And you can also leave a comment on our Facebook page or this live stream if you're watching on Facebook right now to kind of tell us a little bit of backstory about the situation when you did lose power for that amount of time. I know some people are commenting that this storm right now has been the longest that they have ever been without power. So we'll look at those live results and read some of your comments toward the end of the show. But before we take a break, we have an update on the future of a proposed new public safety center in Antrim County. So the county administrator says that a petition was signed by 10% of voters to stop the county from issuing bonds for the project without the approval of voters. So right now, the county clerk's office has to validate these signatures to make sure everything is legit before any next steps could happen. And it could take a couple of weeks to do that. But until then, we are looking at the possibility of a special election happening. Here is Allie Baxter with the full story.
I mean, it's a large amount of money. It's multi-million dollars.
That's what Antrim County Administrator Jeremy Scott says he hears a lot from the public when talking about the proposal for a public safety center. It's a project that failed to come to life when it was placed on the November 2024 ballot as a millage.
This is a problem that's existed for decades. It's been said that it keeps getting kicked down the road. The truth is, the problem hasn't gone away, and we have a deficient jail.
In January, the county's Board of Commissioners voted to issue bonds in an amount not to exceed $25 million to pay for the majority of the new center.
Part of the bonding process, the public has the opportunity to gather signatures for a petition to push that bonding to a vote of the public.
Scott says 2,200 signatures were needed and 2,800 were gathered. After being validated, a special election would likely take place in August because the deadline to put something on the May ballot has passed.
Time literally does equal money here. We're anticipating $1.5 million increase in construction costs every year. At this point, this already puts us back about 6 months at minimum.
Scott says the county has considered every option for an alternative plan, and they've gone as far to create a booklet explaining why certain financial plans will or won't work.
Of course, we want as much public support as possible. It's hard to get public support behind a jail because it's not a positive. It doesn't feel like a positive impact. However, there is opportunities for positive impacts. We do want public support, but it is a requirement. It is something that the counties are statutorily required to provide.
That was Allie Baxter. All right, let's take a quick commercial break. But coming up next, Joe will have much more detail on the potential for severe weather for our Wednesday and what you can expect right after this break.
I'm Jada Johnson from Big Boys TV, and the Fish and Game Report is sponsored by Johnson's Propane.
Well, just a couple of days after that historic ice storm across northern Michigan, more severe weather in the forecast for our Wednesday. Let's turn things over to Chief Meteorologist Joe Charlevoix. And Joe, you mentioned that we could see a little bit of everything from snow showers to potential thunderstorms.
Yeah, kind of. We're going to run through the whole thing at you tomorrow. Snow, we have a little bit of freezing rain, perhaps. And then later in the day, south, perhaps even a few stronger thunderstorms, too. So a lot going on in weather. But here's the thing. After this one, I know we had a break today, but we'll have a longer break in the weather then. It's not going to warm up a whole lot, but it'll be pretty quiet at least. Let's take a look at our three big things. And here they are. We have a complex system coming in tomorrow. We're going to start off in the morning with snow, although up north, it may stay snow most of the day up in the UP and Straits, to a little round of freezing rain, and then perhaps, again, some thunderstorms. And that's number two. Severe storms are possible mainly later tomorrow afternoon or evening south of a Traverse City Alpena line. So interesting day. And then chilly weather hanging on. We're looking at 30s with some snow showers Sunday and Monday. Here's a look at our winter weather advisory. So all of our viewing area except Luce County is under a winter weather advisory. Depends what county you're in until later tomorrow afternoon. For some areas, potentially, depending where you're at, 1 to 5 inches of snow, up to maybe 1/10 of an inch of ice. Southeast winds, it's going to be windy, gusting to 40 miles per hour tomorrow. Here is what this looks like. So we'll run out Stormcast. Not a lot happening. South of Cadillac, you could see up to an inch of snow tonight. But then tomorrow is when this really pushes in here. So the pink areas is freezing rain and sleet. You see the snow. South of there, just rain. And you can see the changeover because we're going to start warming up. Keep in mind, if you look at Cadillac, Big Rapids region, those could be some strong, severe thunderstorms tomorrow afternoon and evening. We'll see how that looks. And maybe another round right there, about 8, 9 o'clock tomorrow. Something to watch. Just, I'm not sure we'll destabilize enough up here to get much severe weather, but if we do, anything's possible, from large hail damaging winds to a tornado spin up tomorrow. And then after that, we're back to just quiet weather, maybe a flurry or a sprinkle on Thursday. All right, overnight tonight, about an inch of snow south of Cadillac, down toward Big Rapids. And then there's tomorrow. Highest totals, it looks like, for the slushy snow will be mainly along and east of US 131 in the lower peninsula. That's kind of where we're looking at in terms of the snowfall. I'll run out, before we get to the severe weather, I'll run out the ice. And again, nothing like what we had over the weekend. Nothing even close to that. But we could see a glaze of ice on the roadways tomorrow for a time. The good thing is, though, especially down south, it's going to warm up, so it'll probably melt. And there's the risk for severe weather, the main risk down toward Memphis. But notice we have a slight risk here from basically Manistee over to West Branch. South of there is the best chance for a stronger storm, and an enhanced risk south of Grand Rapids. That's where the really bigger threat for severe weather is. And I'm going to run through this quick, but here is the wind. Southeast, gusty tomorrow, 30, 40 miles per hour. And then it'll turn out to the west or southwest. I know another windy day coming up on Thursday before that comes to an end. There you go, the extended forecast. Once we get past tomorrow, we do have a weather warn day because of the weather tomorrow. Not too bad. Maybe a couple rain showers south Saturday and a couple snow showers next week, but no big warm up. Early next week, Maya, we stay in the 30s. A little chilly.
All right. Thanks so much, Joe. And if any of you folks have any questions for Joe about this upcoming system, be sure to tune into our Facebook Live tonight at 8 o'clock. He'll answer all the questions for you. All right. Let's take another quick commercial break. But coming up next, sports director Harrison Beebe will be joining me live to talk all things baseball. Stick around. Well, after a pretty rough opening series against the LA Dodgers, the Detroit Tigers finally are in the win column after last night's victory against Seattle. For more on that, let's bring in our sports director, Harrison Beebe, live from the Content Center. Hey, Harrison.
Yeah, Maya, you were kind of busy, but that was a good first inning we caught there last night. 6-run first inning for the Tiger offense. So after getting swept, that was cool to see that they still had some fight in them. And it just might be that the Dodgers are that hard to beat, which knowing how much the Dodgers spend and how they project them to finish coming off a World Series a year ago. But this is not an April Fool's prank, I assure you. April 1st, the Chicago White Sox are tied for the lead in the AL Central. That's pretty shocking, but the proof is in the standings right there. The White Sox, who will be the Tigers' opponent on Friday for the home opener, right now are tied with Cleveland and Kansas City for the lead in that AL Central. And the Twins just can't seem to get it together in time to and the Twins, we like to personally thank the Twins because they were that team that kind of came back to earth and allowed the Tigers to get back in the postseason race at the end of last year. But as my dad would always scoreboard watch and as AL Central Division watch this early in the year, I'd say, all right, Dad, let's give it till June, maybe July before we really garner what the standings look like. I figured early on it's fun to take a look and see how this logjam division looks through the first series plus of the 162-game MLB season. And Maya, as we mentioned earlier, the home opener Friday will be with the Chicago White Sox. And as is tradition with UpNorthLive, I think this will be my 12th year heading down there for opening day. Can't wait to take part at that event. You've been down there with me before in the past, and Cody Bear and I went down there for the playoff game a year ago. It's going to be a little probably different than the playoff atmosphere that we caught in October, but excited to see the Tigers take on the White Sox here for the beginning of the Comerica Park slate on Friday.
I'm sure some of the energy from the playoffs last year will carry over into opening day at Comerica Park this year.
Hopefully they got one of those rally towels. I'm out of mine already. I need another one.
All right. Well, hopefully we'll check in with you on Friday and see if you get one of those rally towels. But Harrison, thanks so much for joining us. We need to take another quick commercial break. We'll check out our live results for our question of the day and read a few of your comments in just a couple minutes.
Salon services are furnished by Epiphany Advanced Academy in East Acme.
We know many folks across northern Michigan have been without power for several days now. So our question of the day is, what's the longest you have been without power? 57% say 1 to 5 days, 26% 5 to 10. more than 10 days. 10% of voters said more than 10, and 7% said it 24 hours. Over on Facebook, Tracy said 5 days about 7-ish years ago with a bad storm. Sarah says 5 days following a nasty storm in the early 90s. Joan says 5 days from the ice storm of 2019. And Tracy said still are since 6 a.m. Saturday morning. Dave says 8 days in hunting camp. Lori says this storm, it's been 4 days and no end in sight. There are plenty of more comments on our Facebook page. That's also where you can join the conversation. But we are all out of time here on Unscripted. Thank you for joining us. We hope to see you back here at 11 o'clock tonight.